Hey guys, today I'm here with Stacey Andon, transformational life and business coach. Usually I have a hard time. Well, not usually I have a hard time, but usually we come into these things with one topic that we want to talk about. And you gave me so many wonderful things that we could just run with, and we could do several episodes. I already know. Um, let's talk about first. Trusting your intuition, because I think that's a lot of things. That's one of the things that a lot of people have a hard time with. We're not taught to, not only are we not taught to trust our intuition, but we're straight taught not to specifically.
Exactly.
And that can leave us all feeling like really lost and like you know, we, we spend our whole life programmed to think and act and do how everyone wants us to think and act and do. And then we wake up one day and realize that life is short and we
Mhm.
don't have forever. And we want to live the life we want to live. We better get on it.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. And I absolutely feel that way. And it's so interesting because I think when we have all of this beautiful intuitive intelligence within us, and you're right, we've been taught not to listen to it. And it's interesting. I remember reading years ago Malcolm Gladwell's Blink. And I think somewhere in there, now hopefully I'm not misquoting, but somewhere in there, he says like 90 to 95%, whatever that gut feeling is that we have is usually spot on. And yet we spend so much time talking ourselves out of whatever it is, right? Because you said, because we've been programmed so many other ways. And it's like, what if we I think, spend this time unbecoming, unlearning all of that so that we can actually tap into what we have that's so powerful. And there have been so many times where I have not trusted my intuition and it's gone sideways. And so I have learned not only just to listen to it, because I think a lot of us hear it, but how do we actually act on it, right? How do we actually do something that says, okay, this doesn't make any sense on paper, and I'm going to do it anyway?
Yeah, the most frustrating thing for me is looking back. Hindsight's 2020 and all.
Mhm.
My biggest issue historically was other people in my life who,
Mm.
because obviously I'm not on a very conformative path or something that, is the norm in any way. So when I first started doing everything, it's like left and right, everybody was trying to talk me out of it. And then, you listen to them for a little while because I don't know, maybe they have a point. Maybe they have some really good points. Maybe they're right. And maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And then, so you go down this, what ends up being the wrong path, and you figure it out like, I don't know, weeks later, months later, years later, even.
Mhm.
And then I just wish that I had followed my gut instincts from the get-go, from childhood, because the more you learn about yourself and you find what fits for you and what works for you and what aligns with you and what makes you happy, the more you realize that you were this person as a child. It's just all
Mhm.
the extra gunk that people layer. And so, like, listening and taking advice from other people is a good thing. You should keep an open mind. But at the same time, you really need to put your blinders up and just full speed ahead towards what you know in your heart is for you.
Yeah. I always say, like, if you're going to crowdsource something, like if you're looking for a new dentist or something and you want to know what other people, right, are using or what have you, that's fine. Ask away. But when you're crowdsourcing things, like, should I take this leap of faith and change careers? Should I go down this path? Should I follow whatever it is? It's so interesting to me because how I met my second husband. I met him while I was still married to my first. We worked together, not in the same company, but on work projects. And something about him, when I shook his hand the first time, this is years before we were dating, was like, pay attention to this person. And so then I kind of went through this process of getting divorced. And I was like, okay, I also took a year, just like, I was like, I don't want to date anybody. I just want to be with myself. I just want to spend time getting to know who I am in this moment and not just jumping from one thing to one thing. And in every moment, it was like, this is your person. This is your person. And I just remember thinking like, I'm not sure about that. And yet it just kept coming and coming and coming. And the moment when I was ready to be like, maybe we should date and maybe we should, just see, he's moved in with the woman that he was with. I was like, all right, this is not going in the direction that I thought it was going to go in at all. And so, anyway, then I said, okay, well, in this moment, I'm just going to go out and have lots, like you said, like there's so much experience. I think we get the wisdom sometimes from going down the, I don't want to even say wrong path, but a little detour somewhere. We really get, I think, our own street cred. We're developing that muscle of like, okay, that does not work out so well when I go down there. But the entire year, and it was over a year that before we ended up going out on like a kind of a date. And but it just kept coming back to like, he's your soulmate. He is the love of your life. And there was no evidence, there's no proof. And I think that that is part of what causes us to trip up when we want to trust ourselves. It's like, how do you trust something when there is no proof? We've been taught all of it to be, look for the evidence, look for the proof of this, have a pros con list, do your research, all of that. And I have found I don't need any of that. It's interesting, but when you actually listen and you trust the timing of things, right? Obviously, the year before when I was like, oh, I'm ready to tell him we should date. And I think it was like, ooh, you still have some things to work out, because I know we would not have worked out if that had started. I needed to kind of go through some other things on my own first. And I remember even saying to him, hey, I think the universe told me we are soulmates. And he was like, wait, what? And I was like, I just need to know. I wanted in that moment when I finally was brave enough to say that to him, I was like, I need to know whether or not this is actually like, am I, just making stuff up in my head or my heart, I should say, because it's not coming from my head. Or is this really, really been a truth that I've been kind of nurturing for the last couple of years? And I think, again, sometimes we're trusting things. We think, oh, well, that means it's going to happen right now. I see and feel things, I'm sure you do too, that are things that are like 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. It's not always immediately click, it happens in this moment.
You're right.
I don't know.
You're right. We can't predict how things are going to unfold.
Mhm.
And these detours that feel like they're holding us back, I guess they're not. I guess they're teaching us things that we take and integrate as our own into our own fields, because you know every single one of us is completely different and on our own path, and the vastness of the truth of that statement is something that we cannot begin to calculate or understand from a logical standpoint, because as humans, it's the ego that wants to box everything and
Mhm.
have the evidence for this or that, and the logic of why we should go down this path or that path, or why we shouldn't. But the detours that we take give us little pieces that we add to, and it compounds on itself.
Yeah.
And we couldn't have gotten those any other way. So, divine timing and all.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? I used to think we were kind of getting tested and learning things, and in the last couple of years, I've kind of ditched that. I don't know. Again, I always bring curiosity to everything, and I'm like, I think it's what I've come to in this moment. Who knows as I shift, but it feels to me like we're remembering. So maybe we go down a path, and it's not so much that we have to be tested or learn it, it's we have to remember, oh, that's not me, or what have you. And I think life is like, again, it's not linear. It's not here for us just to follow a straight, like, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens. So, like, this beautiful infinite energy that's like, hey, let's be in this human experience and like, let's mess around to find out some, I think is part. I think we would be bored. I don't know. I think we would be bored if it all worked out exactly the way we imagined. So I think there's something fun. I got raised, now I know I'm older than you. I got raised on choose your own adventure stories, right? So it's like, okay, that I go down that, I skip to this page and I see that. Well, you know what? Here's the beautiful thing. If whatever that is that we're creating, we're like, scrap that. This is not like, again, this doesn't feel that good. We have the power to go back and then choose a new chapter and choose something else. And I think that I don't know about you, but with my clients, people get stuck in whatever chapter or path or whatever they've chosen, and they forget that they have the power to choose again.
Or they're scared to choose again, usually is what I
Yes.
see. It's they come to me and we'll spend 2 hours, we'll spend an hour every session for 5 sessions straight with them telling me exactly how to fix their own problem, but then being like, what do I do? Like,
Exactly.
like I think
Yes.
no,
Well,
it's
and I think, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh no, you're cool. They just don't want to start doing the thing that we know that we need to do. Starting over, it's hard. It's
It
scary.
is.
It feels like
And yet, I think that the more we can bring, and especially now, it just feels like I'm like, can I begin again in almost every moment, right? And can I let go of who I was yesterday? Can I let go of whatever that? And you're swimming in an unknown that feels very, very unnerving at times. And I think, I don't know about you, but I feel like one of the things that I've done, even in my own personal journey in the last 10 years, is really work on my nervous system, right? My physicality, so that when you're swimming way more in these unknown places, that your whole body is not just like freaking out. Because I think to your point, when we're afraid, it's like everything feels constrictive and the body is like, oh, trying to self-protect rather than like, yeah, like let's take that leap. And there's never that perfect moment where I always say, if you're waiting for the moment for the clouds and the heavens or whatever to open up and say, here it is, you don't have any fear. It's like, good luck with that. Cause I don't think that ever truly happens for people when they're making that shift. It's like, you just have to snuggle up to the fear and do it with it.
yeah, there's never going to be a perfect time. And
No.
I don't believe in waiting until anything. Like, I don't believe
Mm.
in waiting until Monday. I don't believe in waiting till the first of the year or until
Hmm.
your bank account is XYZ or whatever, 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 because
Yeah.
that's just a form of pushing it off and avoidance. And
Yeah. Well,
just,
what happens is, I don't know, to me, I feel like then you're always chasing something that's not in the present moment.
mhm.
Because once you say, I have to wait until I have the perfect soulmate or I've lost 50, whatever, fill in whatever it is. Okay, well, that's something out in the future that then you are chasing. And when you get to whatever it is, let's say you get there, then the brain throws something else at you. Oh, well, now we need the perfect house or the perfect career, whatever it is. And you're just finding yourself in these loops of chasing something that seems to be better out in the future that you have to spend all your time doing rather than like what is already here, right? That I don't need to go out and find some better state or place. And I think that that is something we've all been taught to do. It's like the present moment is never as good as the possibility of the future. And then it just keeps us stuck and trapped in trying to find that.
Trapped is exactly the word in that
Mm.
cycle.
Yeah.
We need to remember that we're completely different person moment to moment. And
Mhm.
because a lot of what keeps us stuck is our attachment to who we think we are with the things that we have.
Absolutely.
So I teach a lot in my yoga classes that, we're a completely different person from moment to moment, where every second of every day, our cells are reproducing with the new food and whatnot that we gave it this week. We're
Mhm.
interacting with people and situations and circumstances. We're consuming material, be that via books or podcasts or just social media, whatever, whatever, whatever. And every single thing that we encounter is changing us.
Mhm.
So if you can just let go of the attachment of who you think you are or who you think you would be or will be or whatever, and just sit in the moment right now. Who are you today?
Mhm.
Because it's a life is a giant cosplay if you want it to be. You can wake up today and decide that you're a Viking. You can wake up tomorrow and decide you're a fairy and just enact that. And you can be confident today and nervous as crap tomorrow and like whatever, whatever, whatever.
Yeah. What do you do? It makes me think, as I was listening to you, it makes me think of one of my teachers, Martha Beck, when I went through life coach school. One of her favorite things that she would say to us is being in creative response to the now, right?
Mhm.
How can you be in creative response to this now? Not what could happen, not what is, not who you think you are, want, right? Like in this now, being in that response space. And I always think that, again, that letting go of attachment. I was saying this morning in the shower, I was like, I'm letting go of letting go. Like whatever it is, I'm like, I'm letting go of figuring it out. I'm letting go of again, and I've done this so many times with myself, but I still get pulled back in to all of these, right? These human attachments. And so I think, I don't know, I think generally bringing compassion, right? Like allowing myself to do it over and over again. I don't know. That feels very to me when I'm in a yoga class, like I have some of the most amazing instructors, and they're like, just begin again in this moment,
Mhm.
right? And it sounds really wonderful, but it's simple. But then you're to your point, it's like, yeah, but then there's so much fighting that goes on, I think, just in our minds around like, but I always say when there's a but, pay attention because whatever that is the real reason why you have to kind of dig around that but and see what's there, that's what's holding you back from whatever it is you truly want to create.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want it to be as simple as it is. We think
Yeah.
things should be complicated.
Yeah.
Sure, we carry all of this gunk from our past with us
Mhm.
in every moment, and some of that's subconscious, and we can try to escape it, but it'll always be there kind of like tickling things a little bit.
Mhm.
But the more that we can be in the present moment, the more we can let the rest of all of that fall away, our trauma and our abuse and our, whatever we experienced that is affecting us today.
Yeah.
And because we spend most of our times either in the past or in the present.
Mhm.
Forget the statistics, but it's only like 5% do we spend in the present moment in
Wow.
a given day.
That rings true for almost everybody I know.
Hmm.
It really does. And it's so interesting. I don't know about you, but I just feel like even with the latest energetic astrological weather, it's like I feel I've been getting these messages kind of like going through my own kind of transformation again the last 18 months. It's like kept getting these messages like you need to divorce your past. Like it's there, it happened to you, but you kind of retelling these stories is not serving you anymore. Like who are you now? If I always say if we have thought amnesia, we bump our head and we forget who we really are, like or forget who we are, we've created, then it's like, what do you really want to do? How do you really want to be and how do you want to show up? And that's my easiest way for me and the people that I work with is like that thought amnesia, because if it didn't exist, who would you be in this moment?
Yeah, it really is that simple, but it's also really hard to do in practice.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, if you don't mind me asking you a question, what do you do? What are some of your favorite practices to come back to that?
Just hyper awareness, mindfulness,
Yeah.
meditation type practices. We got a ton of toolkits on how to check in with your senses and essentially instead of trying to silence your mind, which is more or less what we're talking about, it is, but it's not, finding that neutral position
Mhm.
between your thoughts, like between the thoughts. Because people who are starting out with meditation, they all hear about silencing your mind, and that's a laughable concept. The silencing of the mind is something that comes naturally later on with the
Mhm.
practice. But instead, you want to intentionally distract yourself Like, choose your thoughts, choose what your
Mm.
mind is doing, not just letting it run rampant. Because when it runs rampant is when all the fears come up and the what ifs and the doubts and all of that. So instead of that, you're like, okay, what's going on right now?
Mhm.
Check in with what you feel, like how the air feels on your skin, how your body feels on the inside. Do a quick scan or a slow scan, whatever. Check in with your breathing. How's that looking? Are you breathing in your belly or your shoulders? What do you see? What are the colors? What are the textures? And essentially, you're just crowding out all of
Mm.
those thoughts that you don't want
Mhm.
until you can relax your nervous system
Yeah.
enough to be in the present moment. And
Yeah.
then once you're solidified in the present moment, you can check in with your heart instead of your head and be like,
Mhm.
okay, so in this moment, what direction do I need to put my attention towards?
Yeah. I
Big,
think you're right. Oh, sorry.
there you go.
I, I think that so many people, because I facilitate meditation, people are like, I can't do that.
Yep.
My head never stops, right? I mean, nothing ever stops. I can't do that. And I was like, you know what? I don't even know how long ago it was. I first meditated and I had the same belief. I was like, I can't do this. My head goes, my thoughts da, 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 all day long. And, I remember thinking like, well, what if you didn't have to make your thoughts like this was my first kind of like first step. What if you didn't have to make your thoughts stop? You just got to sit there and watch them
Hmm.
and say, oh, that's interesting, right? You're not trying to make them go away. You're not trying to do anything yet, right? Of like planting something new. You're just watching and being the observer. And it's so interesting because I think sometimes even now, and I've been meditating a long time, it's like I can still have a day like that where it's like, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and be the observer. And I think that that is, again, culturally, we're not taught to sit and like just be patient and be in a pause and be in a moment to observe and bring stillness and curiosity. It's like we want to act, we want to keep moving. And I think there's such a rebellious act of taking a pause, taking a moment or moments to stop and just listen. I don't know. I mean, that's my favorite life hack on the planet, the pause.
I agree, mine too, because the whole hustle culture of
Mm.
our society is just go, 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 go. You got to be
Yeah.
productive, got to be moving, got to be doing. And the truth of nature is the balance between the yin and the
Mhm.
yang.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree completely. Focusing in on the yin is exactly how we bring balance to and
Mhm.
healing to the
Yeah.
rest of our lives. Yeah, pause before everything because we think we're too busy, but all it takes is 1 to 3 breaths.
Mhm.
I don't care how late you are. You're not going to be any less late if you just pause for 30 seconds, take a
Mhm.
few breaths, relax your face and shoulders, recalibrate, and then move. Because again, I tell my kids all the time, they'll rush to do something. And because you rushed, you made a
Mhm.
mess. You were rushing and you fumbled. And now we got a
Yeah.
huge mess. So instead of taking 3 minutes, it's now taking us 7 minutes because now we have to stop and clean it. And that's
Yeah.
essentially the same thing with all of life. If you rush at things, you're going to fumble more. And
Yeah.
if you just calm your nervous system, the nature of life moves at a much slower pace than what society and culture and media want you to believe and have programmed you to be. We
Yes.
all move a lot slower naturally because that's how we formulated our bodies. Evolved is the word I'm looking for. Back in the farms on the
Mhm.
plantation or whatever, whatever.
Yeah. And I think that um I don't know. I've been going through this like personally the last 18 months where it's like slow down and not just slow down for a little while, because I know for me, like when I had an illness, I gave myself permission to slow down. So I've had some big illnesses over the course of my adult life, just because I think it was the only time I ever felt like I could actually rest, take care of myself. And then I realized, right, that there was this program going on inside of me that was like, oh, the only time if you want to rest, we need to give you a serious illness so you can take time off. And I just, in being in in the last 18 months of my life, and I'm right here in this kind of menopausal space too, it's like I'm recognizing that desire to be in that rhythm that you're talking about, that natural rhythm, and not go back to whatever it is that, I was an overachiever, overproduce, you name all the energies of hustle culture. I was at the front of the line going, yes, 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 me. I wanted so badly to, prove myself and find my worthiness and all of that and create whatever it is I thought that, I was supposed to do. And it burned me out and exhausted me. And I think that now, even in learning that over the years, I still would default to your point. There's so many programs going on, right? That we maybe were aware of, or maybe we're not, but they're still kind of working their way through us. And again, it just feels very rebellious to say, hey, I'm going to align myself just even with the seasons, right? Winter, hibernation, really slow. Spring is kind of a little back and forth transition. At least that's what we're having here right now. And it's like, how can you be in that moment and not? It's hard because you're watching everybody else kind of fly down the highway and you're kind of like hanging out on the side of the road, smelling the, I don't know, wildflower or something. At least that's what I'm doing.
I agree completely. I also fell into that trap of I was sick all the time. I was
Mm,
and people will have you think it's genetic and whatnot because
mhm,
everybody around you are sick. And then you're like, and once I realized that the only time I would let myself rest was when I was sick. And I
mhm.
started noticing that when I was getting burnt out on work and being a mom and just doing all of the things is when I and wanted nothing more than just to take a rest day is
Yeah.
when I would get sick. uh, as soon as nothing else changed. It was just my realization of the pattern, and started letting myself rest when I needed rest, when I wanted rest, and I started telling myself, and I would feel the sickness start to come on, and I'd like check in, and I'd be like, "Are you want to rest? You don't have to get sick to rest. You
Mm,
can just go take a bath. Do you want to just go take a bath? You don't have to do work today. You can just go take a bath. You did good."
mhm.
And it would just instantly stop it in its tracks and flip it over. And I have not been sick in years since. And I was sick all the time. And also the with the changing of the seasons, I agree completely. I wonder often if I don't know. I go back and forth between like this was intentional, they designed it this way to keep us down, and no, it just happened like this. It's nobody's fault. But
Mm,
the astrological new year starts in the spring. It starts with
mhm,
the first day of spring, which
mhm.
energetically, if you're trying to set New Year's resolutions and whatnot,
Yeah,
gives you that oomph that you need.
totally.
But our regular, the Gregorian calendar first of the year, is January 1st in the dead of winter
Mhm.
and nobody wants to do anything. There's no energy. The energy's flat.
Absolutely.
And, we have a seasonal depression, and I can't help but wonder if that's just we're meant to hibernate.
Yeah. Have you know Jeff Foster at all in any of his writings or works? He uses or says depression is like if you kind of slow the pronunciation down, it's like deep rest, depression, deep rest. And it's like it's listening to you, it's like exactly winter, deep rest, right? No wonder we think we're depressed. We're not. We're just needing to go a lot slower. I mean, I'm in my pajamas sometimes. It's 5, 6 o'clock at night, and I've decided people say, "Hey, do you want to meet out at?" No, I don't want to meet out. I want to just be a homebody and be in my pajamas and make some really warm, nourishing food, right, for my family, and then absolutely just have that like the darkness, like be in the darkness instead of trying to kind of offset that with whatever else we do. It's like just allowing it, which I think, we've been talking about that. We haven't, I don't know, we use that word at all, but this conversation is like, how do we allow life to unfold? How do we partner with that unfolding rather than try to control it in a way, right? For some, again, to me, for some means that really is just driven by whatever the societal drives are, not really from our true sense of like, oh, this really feels like it's in alignment for me.
Yeah, you got to think about how our ancestors lived, and
Hmm.
that's what our bodies adapted to. They were,
Yeah.
during the spring, summer, and fall, they were very busy in the fields with the harvest for, stocking up food for the winter. But
Yeah.
in the winter, when it's cold, everything's dead, there's not really anything to do.
Mhm.
I'm sure all they did was lay around and try to keep
Yeah.
warm.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I'm trying to do in
Also, what
way.
I'm trying to do.
I'm always cold, so I'm like, oh, I need another pair of socks on. Exactly. And it's like, what happens if we just give ourselves complete permission to do it our own way, right? We just say, forget this path, forget. And again, I think we're so wired and we've been so taught to like belonging over everything else, right? You have to do it a certain way so that you don't get abandoned and isolated and put out kind of from the group. And it's like that doesn't serve us anymore. Maybe when we were way more into kind of surviving on this planet, there were things about that were helpful. But at this point in the game, it really just becomes this like internal conflict I think a lot of us are wrestling with.
Absolutely. And the thing is that the people, because our loved ones corral us back to what
Mhm.
is acceptable,
Mhm.
because again, back in the day when we needed our villages to survive, we needed the
Yep.
village to like us, or
Yeah.
we most likely would not survive. And
Yep.
our family members and our loved ones corral us back into the stable of what's acceptable. But nowadays it's not applicable anymore. We can make our own way. We don't need this particular village. Before we were
Mhm.
just dropped into a village and whatever people we were given is who we were given. And nowadays
Yep.
we have a little bit more wiggle room and leniency with that. And the people who try to corral you away from that which you actually want, that which makes you happy. The funny thing is that they're going to try to corral you from anything that's not what would make them happy.
Yeah.
So you have to focus on your own happiness rather than theirs. That's the title of this episode, is giving yourself permission.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love
Permission to
it.
rest, permission to be happy, permission to
Yes.
your dreams, permission to let go of the past.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So people would say to me, I mean, people say, "Oh, how do you do that?" Right? Like everybody wants to know how. How do we do give ourselves permission? And I think it's a practice, right? It's a process and a practice. It's not like overnight, all of a sudden you're going to say, "Okay, I declare," and then you're just never going to feel pressure from your family or pressure from outside sources, or you're never going to question or doubt. It's like you do it with all of that. You do that, and I think to me, coming back to a practice where you're checking in, like you're saying with yourself, and you're taking 1 to 3 breaths, even in the start of your day, end of your day, and really getting clear about what that is that you want, and then really aligning. Maybe you just take one thing off your day, your week, your life that doesn't feel the alignment. And it's a baby thing. I always say start where the places where it doesn't feel as scary and practice because you don't have to do it, in one foul swoop. And I don't think anybody really is doing it that way.
Less is more,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
The less you do, the more you have a blog post
Ooh,
I came across a little while ago.
yay.
Other computers done went to sleep on me. Talking about how to achieve more, you should do less, which is counterintuitive. We think that the more we do, the more we'll get, but that's not
Right.
all have. I tell people all the time I've been doing podcasts since 2016. And I was booked, like, doing things for
Hmm.
the business, for the work, the stuff, the coaching, 24/7. I slept like, I was a new mom at that when I first
Wow.
started my business. So I was just around the clock. I was getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning just to work before the kid woke up.
Hmm.
And man, I ran myself into the ground for years. And as soon as I quote unquote gave up, like I didn't
Yeah.
quit, but
No.
like soft quit, that's a
Yeah.
we're using these days. Soft.
Quiet quitting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I just oh, and I barely poked at it with a stick and took more naps. That's exactly when things started taking off and
Mhm.
producing outcomes and stuff
Yeah.
for me. And it because when you do less, your priorities are more aligned.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we like to keep busy, right? Busy is kind of like the very popular four-letter word around always going and doing something, and it almost becomes kind of a status in our socials. I'm so busy. And I always say people, I don't want to be busy. If I want to say no, I want to say no, not because I might even have something, but just because I don't want to block the space. It's like that, and people are like, "Wait, what?" What are you doing? And it's like, if you are bragging to me that you are so busy, I think it's a mechanism too, kind of touch back what we've said. If you're not then really checking in with yourself, right? So we stay busy. And this is what I did in my 20s. I had so much trauma that was not, I was had not unpacked yet. And it was like I kept busy because I was like, if I slow down, I am going to have the most like horrific breakdown of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to outrun it
Mm-hmm.
for a really long time. And I think that, again, most of the clients that come to me are always saying to me, I had a client one time years ago. Oh, I loved her dearly. And she said, I need you to help me. I signed up for yoga and I'm not going. Like you need to help me go to yoga class. And I was like, okay, let's see. Let's get curious about this. And so anyway, what we discovered was that her life was so scheduled like yours. She's a mother, she had all these competing things, she worked all the time, and she didn't herself didn't want to go to one more thing. I don't care whether it was the best thing on the planet. Her body, her whole spirit was like, no more. I am done, and you cannot make me do one more thing. So we started, one of the things I always say to people is like, carve out some time where you do nothing. You
Mm-hmm.
absolutely do nothing. Now, maybe you take a nap. However, sometimes doing nothing, people are like, okay, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do yoga. I'm like, no, no, no,
I'm
no, no.
doing.
Don't do it. Exactly. Nothing means nothing. Stare out the window or and again, it can be ragingly uncomfortable when you are so busy to all of a sudden sit because maybe things might come up that you haven't felt into yet or process, which is fine. Those things are gonna come and we're going to be able to navigate them. However, this drive to be every moment has to be productive, including like yoga and meditation and spirituality. I was like, you're just using those things again, the way you're using other things, work and all the things that we go, go, go. And it's like, it's not actually going to break the cycle until your capacity to be uncomfortable has like generally connected to your ability to create something new for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tons of us find doing nothing the hardest thing in the world to do.
Oh, or receiving. I don't know about you, but this has been my deep dive in the last 18 months I really needed people. I was having some health issues. And so it was like, I can't give back. My thing was always like, oh, if somebody does something for me, I'm going to do something right back for them, right? That there's this quid pro quo. And I was like, I can't. I don't have the capacity right now, energetically, physically, to do this. And so just to receive and just to like get up and be in the world without some productivity tag on me. Oh my gosh, it was so uncomfortable and yet so liberating and brought me into this moment where it's like, I just don't want to keep rinse, lathering, repeating that. And to your point, we can be, I think, moderately successful in some of these systems, but at what cost to ourselves? And I think my message is always there's a lot easier way. And it does have to do with ease and letting things go and pressing the easy button. And you can actually, I've had so many people over the years create so many amazing things by doing so much less. And they're astonished
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, because again, here's your one lane on the highway. This is what it is. And when and I say, there's 800 million lanes on the highway. Which one do you want to be on? And it's like, oh, it's a very powerful place to be, but it can also be, like you say, because you're in the unknown space, it can be very like, ooh.
Over.
tender and yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. Um, I had a point, but I lost it.
That is my brain always these days. A word, a point, a thought, it all is very fleeting.
When you do start doing nothing and you allow yourself the rest, all of these thoughts are going to pop up because they're unprocessed things that have been waiting to pop up
Mhm.
so that they can be cleared. So
Yeah,
that's one reason a lot of people can't stand to sit still is because if they sit still, their mind starts going.
yeah.
And, you know, we talked about meditation earlier and how you just observe them and try to find the space in between the thoughts. But also, if you acknowledge the thoughts that are coming up, and if you need to spend some time with them in order
Mhm,
for them to go,
mhm.
then you can do that. And it'll get easier. And that's pretty much how you work through the things of the past
Yeah.
by not
Yeah.
avoiding it, but by looking at it and being like, okay, that happened. You're a part of me.
Mhm,
It doesn't mean you have to define my decisions now.
mhm.
So that when you are subject or when you do come up to these things and these decisions for, you know, this path or that path, what lane do I want to be on? And you feel pulled towards one path, but then, you know, fear of safety draws you towards the other path. You can sit there and be like, okay, why? And yeah, get curious about it, analyze it, ask
Yeah.
it what it's trying to protect you from. And
Mm.
what that stems from. And then you
Mhm.
can kind of because the mind, people think that they think that they are their mind and they're not. The
Yeah.
brain pops up intrusive thoughts all the time that, you know, you have thoughts that pop in your head and you're like, what? What? Where
Yeah.
did that come from? That I don't like that. Shoo shoo, go away.
I love that.
So you have to understand that you are the conscious observer. You're not
Mhm.
the brain. The brain is a tool that it's been programmed, it's there to keep you safe, and that's why it's going to try to pull you away from what you want,
Mhm.
to keep you on, even if the path that you are on is unbelievably unhealthy, toxic, terrible, and miserable. It's
Yeah,
still safety with the devil, you know.
exactly. Exactly. And I think that maybe that's the whole point is for us to remember that we really can, we don't have to, right, follow and live our lives under that these constructs of whatever that has been created, that we can break free from that. And I think we just keep remembering over and over and over again, like you said, we just come back to that practice and we get, I don't know, like to your point, it does get easier. Not that everything's easy, but when you keep doing that over and over again, it's different even when you have a day where your mind just does not want to stop and give you any slack. There's something there because it's like going to the gym, right? If you do a bicep curl the first time, it feels really awkward and it's like, what am I doing? The more you practice that, the stronger you build. That's the same with intuition. The more you practice and you trust in these smaller doses, the easier it will get to do something a little bit bigger and to do something a little bit bigger. I look at my life like 15 years ago, what I thought was super, super brave, and no judgment to that person. But now I'm like, oh, I have a capacity to do so much more, like whatever that is, because I have sat with all the things that want to come up. And I think that, again, I think people don't want to do that because they think, oh my God, that's going to be miserable. It's usually a lot faster, interestingly enough, than what the brain is going to tell you it's going to be.
Yeah, it feels
It's
like
not as bad a process.
we feel like if we open that can of worms to begin with, then we're going
Mhm.
to have a complete and utter breakdown and
Mhm.
we're not going to be okay ever again. And I mean, you may, it may pretty well be like that for about an hour or
Mhm.
two,
Mhm.
but then it's going to start slacking up and lessening the overwhelm and the sheer power of it all.
Yeah. There's nothing I think I have a thought now that there's no feeling or thought I am unwilling to feel or think, right? Or to make space for.
Mhm.
And that helps me navigate because you're right. Sometimes we are gonna have I mean, I've had very messy meltdowns in my life over the years, and not that I want to go back through that. However, it has everything that has happened to me and all the things that I've gone through have brought me to this moment in a way that, again, is kind of uniquely whatever my path is here. And I don't even regret. People are like, "Oh, do you wish you did?" Oh, sure. Yeah. Would my life be different if I didn't, stay in an abusive marriage as long as I did, or, whatever it was? Sure. And yet I've just kind of let even that go that, like, oh, I could have done it different or whatever. It's like, hey, this is how I did it and this is what it is. And whatever it is, it's like I was listening to you talk a few minutes ago about like all the thoughts come up. It reminds me of like if you haven't done the laundry in like a couple of weeks, right? And you have the laundry pile just keeps piling up. Yeah, you're gonna probably have to do a couple loads of whatever those thoughts are. But
Mhm.
over time, if you commit to a practice of this, then it's like, oh, you're putting the load on like, I don't know, whatever the speed thing is that I like to do. It's like 25 minutes. And you're not spending 3 weeks catching up on the laundry. So yes, it could kind of create a little bit of an influx at first. And yet, generally speaking, then once you get into that practice and you are willing to go there with yourself, you're not going to accumulate 3 weeks worth, generally speaking, and it won't feel as overwhelming. And I think that, again, doing it with people you love, having support, having people around you that really can guide you as well too. We can do it by ourselves, but I always say, why? Why not have somebody that you really trust? They can't do the work for you, but they can be a really beautiful support for you as you do.
Absolutely. I love your laundry analogy because it's so
Mm.
true. I'm
Right?
always telling for children, like cleaning their rooms and
Mhm.
doing their laundry because I wash their clothes, but I make them put their clothes up and I make
Mhm.
them make sure their dirty clothes gets to me.
Mhm.
But I'm always, always, always telling them, like, if we just keep it up a little a day, if we
Yep.
just do a little bit a day, you come in here and you just pick up all your clothes from the floor and put them in the hamper
Mm.
and, straighten up a couple of more things. That takes 5 minutes
Yeah.
rather than us having to spend 2 to 3 hours one day
Yeah.
cleaning everything because nothing's been touched for a while.
Exactly. It's like your 1 to 3 breath. It's like, give yourself those gifts all day of, like, taking the pause, and you're gonna find yourself you're not gonna be like, "Oh, this is" And, sometimes, again, we don't know, like, life just throws a curveball at us, and it's like, how are we going to be in it? And even the last 18 months being in a kind of my own curveball, I have used everything that I have gone through in the last, I don't know, 15 20 years. And it's not that it was always easy, but it wasn't. I've been moving through, like, I always also think of like a river, right? Like we can get really stuck or we want to hold on to that branch because the water's moving really rough and we're afraid to let go. And it's like if you just allow yourself to be in the flow, whatever it is, and trust that, again, we can create our own safety. We can create whatever it is we need for ourselves, kind of coming back in that inner trust, then it's like, okay, I can let go of this branch. I don't have to hold on, grip my life so tightly. And that to me has been something I've been practicing all my life.
Yeah, you get more comfortable in the water because
Yeah.
at first you're like, oh, people drown here. I'm not,
Yes.
and then you're fighting, and then panic. I couldn't swim until I was 13. So
Interesting.
I
Oh, so you really, yeah, you had that
get
fear, I'm sure, right?
it. Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
me and water got some issues, but,
Mm.
we get all the time now. And
Yeah.
when we first started going, I was a complete and nervous wreck, complete tense of my entire body the whole time. Why am I here? Oh, it's because everybody I love wants to be here. Okay. And but you get more comfortable with it as it goes, and you're like, okay, okay. And then you start to realize that just like when you're learning to swim, the more you tense up and like fight it and panic, the
Yeah.
more likely you are to drown. But if you just, the more you relax, and
Mhm.
steering your kayak around rough waters is the same way, the more you relax and just let your
Mhm.
body flow with it and move with it, the more control you actually have.
Yeah.
There's
Uh,
control in the non-control. That's weird.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's a paradox, right? That's one of my other favorite things. It's like we have control, we don't have control. How do you find the place where those two things that seemingly incongruent can be held together and be true at the same time? And I think that's the deep end of living a life like that isn't just rinse, lather, repeat what the world has taught us. It's like, are we actually willing to give up control and also realize we're very, very powerful at the same time?
Yeah, we can shoulda, coulda, woulda ourselves to death also.
Totally.
So
Totally.
yeah.
It's like a to me, it's like, do I want I remember having a moment, and this is a couple years ago, and I don't even remember what I was upset about, but I was upset about something. And I was like, if this is my last day on the planet, like let's say I go out, bus takes me off the planet somehow. I get and I was like, do I want to spend my time? Right. I'm like, no, I definitely do not. I would be like, well, that was a waste of my last day on this planet, ruminating about whatever it was I should have done or could have done or whatever it was. And so it just again was so liberating in that moment to be like, I don't actually have to keep doing this. I don't actually have to keep focusing on that. I can just let it go. And to your point, I think sometimes where people feel like they're stuck is that they are resisting the thing that they most, right? Like I don't want. Now, there's one thing around being in physical danger, which I think is part of that water metaphor and analogy. But I also think we get really stuck because it's like, I said to somebody I love recently, they're like, I don't want it to be hard anymore. And I was like, but what if you were willing for it to be hard? Right? Because you're fighting so hard against it being difficult that it's almost like you're to your point, you're drawing that in. I was like, what if you're like, I surrender right now in this moment, it feels hard and it's okay. Like it's okay. And she's like, oh my gosh, like everything just kind of loosened up. And it's like, it's so interesting. It's like, I always say too, it's like keeping like the big bad wolf at the door and trying to just build a bigger structure, stronger structure to keep it out. Open the doors, let whatever it is come in, snuggle up to it, let it be okay. Doesn't mean you're saying, I want my whole life to be difficult. But if you keep pushing against it your whole life too, you're just going to find yourself in all sorts of experiences where this thread, this theme keeps coming up for you. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you want to practice this again? Sure, we can do this for you. We can do this for many lifetimes. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly what
Yeah.
happens. It's going to keep bringing it back to you until you're willing to surrender to
Yeah.
it.
And even I don't know, because I mean, I learned to swim when I was like a baby, but like even surrendering to your fear, right? I am afraid. Like I think so often we think, right, we're trying to transcend our humanity. And I'm like, but how can we just embrace it? We are allowed to be afraid. We're allowed to be in those moments of complete vulnerability with ourselves, and that's okay too. And I think that sometimes again, there's so much bypassing that goes on when it's like, okay, how do we just get to this place where it's like, well, sometimes you just have to be in the thing that's messy and fearful of what have you, and just be like, okay, I'm in it. I'm in it. I'm feeling it. I don't have to like it. However, I can be okay as I navigate.
Yeah. People want us to give them the secrets to everything. The big
Yeah.
secrets that we're holding out on them on how to make it all better.
True. This is my big secret. Okay, so here it is. Ready, Savannah? This is my big secret because people are like, you're always so joyful. And I was like, because I allow myself not to be joyful. So if you're always trying to be something and just be, positive all the time, it's not, you got to be authentic and you've got to allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of being this, human soul, whatever this is on this planet, the more you are absolutely true to yourself in a moment, no matter what anybody else says. I always say, to thy own self be true above all else, then you're going to figure your way through it. And you probably are going to create more joy because you're going to be in so much better alignment with yourself than whatever all the masks and this, titles and all the things that we've been trying to chase that really are empty. They don't really have any meaning for us. If you want to create a meaningful life, be willing to be in all of it and let it be imperfectly human and messy all at the same time as it is soulfully blissed out as well. It's like, again, paradox.
Yeah, being honest in the now, because
Yeah.
we really want to, we think we have to be the same all the time. And that's just that's, we're not robots. We're not
Nope.
like we're up and down all the time, every
Yeah.
day. And every day it's going to be different, and that's okay. And we're I think we're becoming more real, to where,
Mhm.
I used to notice all the fakeness when I was a kid. That was one of the things that really hung me up about things, is like fakeness and how obvious it was, and nobody seemed to notice how obvious they were being.
Mhm.
And nowadays it drives me insane. I went to the eye doctor a couple of days ago just for my yearly checkup, and I was texting my husband. I was like, I hate it here. Everybody's got their customer service voices on, and are so fake. And I'm so laid back in a, because I've done all of this inner work and whatnot, and I don't take life seriously anymore, and it's all one big joke. And because if you don't learn to laugh about it, then we're all gonna cry. And so I try to like make jokes and lighten things up, and everybody's just like tunnel vision. You can tell they're just on autopilot, don't want to be here. And they're like, and like going back, and they're just really short. And I was like, oh man, I cannot wait until people realize that you can be a real human and professional. Because we think that we have to put on all this fakeness and all the
Mhm.
customer service voices and smiles and
Mhm.
whatnot
It's so
in order
true.
to be professional, when
Yeah.
that's just going to push everybody away.
No, it's so true. And again, I think humor and playfulness and all that you embody is some of the most sacred energy on this planet. I do like when people are like, I want to have fun. I want to go to the grocery store and have an adventure and sing down the aisles. And people are like, wait, what is she doing? And it's like, exactly, when if you could choose, if they were all the choices were all equally true, which one is way more fun? Like, choose those things, right? Follow the breadcrumbs that feel like fun and light you up, rather than this heaviness that, yeah, we're kind of, lots of us have been asleep. And again, we're all doing different things on this planet. So I think, to your point, a lot of us are starting to get to this place where it's like, wait, what? Um, and some people have been doing it for a long time, and other people are kind of new to this party. So it's like, jump on in and just, like you said, I love what you said. We're always somebody new in each moment. That's like one of my favorite things you've said in this conversation. I know I'm going to take it with me for, like, tuck it in and take it, because it's such a beautiful insight.
At the same time, we're still the same kid that we
Mhm.
were when we were 5. And that's
Yeah.
what you have to remember, is to let that kid still exist. It doesn't matter that you're in an adult body.
Yeah.
You're still that 5-year-old kid that wants to sing and dance in the grocery store. I mean,
Mhm.
all kids sing and dance in the grocery store until an adult continuously tells them to stop.
Right.
And I've never been one to tell my children to stop doing things like I mean, we don't act out in the grocery store or stuff. We're not
Mhm.
obnoxious and we're not bothering other people. But if you want to be silly, then be
Mhm.
silly.
Yeah.
Please. More people should. Adults should.
Yeah.
There's lots we could learn from kids.
Somewhere in adolescence, right? We're taught we have to get serious, we have to figure out what we're doing with our lives, all this stuff. And it steals so much of the fun of being a human, and just being able to be, ooh, what's this like? Oh, what's that like? Rather than, oh, I can't do that because I have to be serious, or I have to, what have you. I had a friend who we were talking about, like, again, she was dressing professionally for some event she was doing, and she said it just didn't feel like me. And she's a personal stylist. And I said, what if you just dress? I was like, they don't want another, I don't think. They hired you, your stylist. Go in and be dressed the way you would as a stylist. I'm sure it will be professional. It will be you. And rather than you trying to be, and I think that's it, right? Like, what have I been trying to do my whole life to conform or to fit into somebody else's expectations? And if I could do whatever I really truly wanted, I mean, this is like life coaching 101, what would it be without any constraints, without anything saying you can't, you don't have the ability, whatever. What is in your heart? Let that, put that out there and let that be kind of a guidepost for living. And it'll change, like you said, it'll change, it might morph, but it will be some place to start that comes from within, and that trusting of what really is inside you that wants to come out and play this lifetime.
Yeah. Yep. I completely agree. I could go on and go on and go
Me too. I know. I know. Whenever I meet somebody who are gonna have juicy conversations, like, wow, we could talk for a couple hours.
on. We'll just have to do another episode at a later date if you like.
Totally. I'm in.
Awesome. Well, tell everybody how they can find you.
So, sorry. If you're looking for me, I have a free Facebook group. It's private. It's called Everyday Enchantment. And I also have my own podcast. So we'll have to talk, Savannah, about that too. It's also called Everyday Enchantment because, again, I believe the magic is in the everyday life. It's not something we have to go and find and wait for. You can create it right now in exactly how you are in the life that you have. So if you're interested in working with me or finding out just more about me, you can always visit my website, which is stacyandon.com.
Perfect. Awesome.
Thank you.
I agree so much. It is
Mm,
the everyday itty bitty teeny tiny things.
right?
It's
The
not,
magic's all around us.
we think it's the grand gestures, the big
Mhm.
events, and yeah, those are impactful, but happiness is created in the itty bitty teeny tiny moments in between, in
Totally.
the day.
And if you slow down, you're going to find all of that. And it's going to light up your life like you've never even realized. You're going to go, wow, here it all is around me in such beautiful ways. So thank you so much for inviting me on, Savannah. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here.